AZ Global presents this program in color.
Welcome to this episode of Go Northwest. Traveling America's highways means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For some, it's nostalgic, harkening back to our days as children, watching the landmarks rush by with our windows rolled down and the wind blowing in our faces. For others, travel is a promise, hidden treasures still waiting to be discovered along the road in a world that seems to be shrinking closer to the size of a computer screen with every passing year. For our first stop today, we're traveling east through the Columbia Gorge to meet a group that doesn't consider the direction of highways when they travel. Instead of looking forward to the distant horizon, when these guys are ready to travel, they look up.
It's looking good all of a sudden, huh?
Come on, Nick, show us where the lift is.
Run. Yeah, Nick.
Yeah, buddy, show us where those thermals are.
Did you happen to grab a FRS radio? I'd launch sooner than later because it's been picking up since we got here.
Woo! So I'm Dave Blizzard, and this is my son Nick, and we paraglide. We are addicts. And so we do this because we have to. Woo!
It's an unreal experience, you know. It gets you out of your daily bubble of reality.
Early morning at Cliffside in the Columbia River Gorge. For most Oregonians, any sunny day is a good day, but for a group of paragliders preparing for a launch, the definition of a good day can be very different.
Yeah, go ahead, check. I'm on weatherunderground.com right now, so you could just type in Rufus there if you wanted to.
I think Oceanside's still gonna be our best bet for actually not having sledders and staying up a little bit. The North American model gives us a favorable forecast at Cliffside, but GFS global forecast is not that nice. I usually just pick the nicest forecast.
You go with that one?
Yeah.
You make the final call, man. Oceanside, coast, or out to the gorge?
I say we go out to the gorge and enjoy the sun.
All right, let's head east.
Gorge is always nice.
Yeah, good. Really, the sport is really a lot of parawaiting and discussing weather.
And that discussion will continue through the day.
We're going paragliding, man.
Because the necessity for paragliders to monitor the weather goes beyond a simple desire to avoid the rain.
Bye. I don't know if thermals really rip up there, though, do they?
Oh yeah, I'm sure you get thermals of it.
For a paragliding pilot, the complexities of ever-changing weather conditions is the engine that lifts them from the ground and gives them the ability to stay in the air.
So we're looking at these, there's crows that are flying right underneath us right now, and crows like to play in the wind a lot. You see this guy's flipping upside down. But there's a hawk up here that hasn't flapped at all, and he's now gone up a good 200 feet since we first seen him. So that means that there's a decent amount of lift here, so that means that we should have a decent opportunity for a flight.
It's looking good.
In order to soar after launching from the ground, a paraglider maintains altitude by finding wind directed upwards from objects on the ground, such as a dune or a ridge.
Dude, I'm so happy to be flying with you again.
With experience, a pilot can learn to find and ride rising columns of heated air known as thermals. These thermals are created as the sun heats the ground and rock formations below. Once a pilot finds a thermal, he or she begins to fly in a circle, trying to center on the strongest part of the thermal where the air is rising the fastest.
And as the sun heats up these cliffs here, it's going to heat up the air, and it could cause some thermals to start rising up this direction as well. Yeah, give us some thermals. We're not going to land at all. We're going to fly to Portland. You know, I grew up with him wanting to build his own airplane in his barn. So, you know, I got to play with it inside of it as a kid, all the little kit pieces, and, you know, ask him all the time, when are you gonna build this? When are you gonna build this?
I was afraid to finish it, because then I was gonna have to fly it. It's much better just to dream about it. And then he came, we both got, well, I got close to my private pilot's license. I passed my exam and then had to do the last long distance and decided it was clunky. And then he went out and got his license, his private pilot's license, and he thought it was clunky. And then we never did fly for a little while.
And you're like, oh, we gotta try this powered paragliding. And so we took lessons and I was just totally hooked.
You didn't fall over! Woohoo! All right! 2 steps and stood there. All right. This is really fun for me to do with Nick, especially because we've been tight all the way through our old growing up. We kind of grew up together. It's a great way for me to stay young, and I like that part.
In 1903, on the plains of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, this history began. In the granddaddy of all modern planes, the Wright brothers won immortality by sustaining flight in a heavier-than-air flying machine. There is no fuss or ceremony, no cheering crowds. The motors sputter and catch, weights drop, the ship catapults off the ground into the air for the first flight on record. Since then, aviation history is written in a never-fading book of records.
Have fun, man. Let me pull this tip out.
Yeah, thanks.
Have fun, dude.
The history of paragliding dates back to the early 1960s with the invention of the parafoil. Shortly after, NASA, along with the United States Air Force, began experimenting and improving the technology.
By now, you've probably noticed that we're not flying the regular round canopies which you might have come to associate with parachuting. Today, we're flying square canopies, parachutes which are shaped like and operate on the same principle as an aircraft wing. These flying wings are inflated and supported by ram air entering the front of the canopy, and they offer force speeds of up to 30 miles per hour, and much more maneuverability than that offered by a round canopy.
When the technology became available to the public, the sport of slope soaring was born. A published book of flight instructions and the first Paragliding World Championship held in Austria in 1989 brought paragliding into the mainstream. Closer to home, Nick and Dave's flying partner, Matt Henze, promotes paragliding by organizing tours and teaching the sport to newcomers through his company, Cloud Surf Paragliding.
At Cloud Surf, I do tandem instructional flights. And with that, you don't have to have any experience. You just come out with us, and I've got a big wing that can take 2 people. I do all the flying. You just sit back and relax and enjoy the scenery.
I love it because it forces me to be in the moment. I mean, so much of our lives we're thinking about traffic ahead, things in the past, both near and wide, and then when you're actually flying, you're solely in that moment. You're concentrated just on where you're at.
At the end of the day, what matters to a paraglider pilot is elementary. The camaraderie felt between those that share the same passions, and always, always, the need to simply go up.
We all kind of take care of each other amazingly. We've all been through the same kinds of experiences. We're a very tight group.
Every time we take off, you just can't believe it, really. We've been doing it for 4 years now, and every single time, it doesn't matter how high you are, and in some cases, even if you're super low to the ground, it's even more magical. It's just, I don't know, you're flying. I mean, look at this. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da.
Like many Oregonians, my wife and I love spending time in the outdoors. Protecting the wildlife is important to us, and that's why we're here today at the Audubon Society of Portland. Audubon began doing wildlife rehabilitation in the 1930s, before the term even existed. The Portland facility has the capacity to treat more than 3,000 wild animals each year. The Care Center is a nonprofit organization whose goal is to give injured native wildlife a second chance at life in the wild and to reduce the hazards they face by educating the public. Concern and compassion for the natural world is very important. Right now, we're going to travel south down to Eugene and visit an organization that takes care of a real special class of feathered friends.
Somebody handed me my first hawk and I said, oh my God, you know, and I became the raptor person, and it's just gone on from there. I mean, almost all the artwork in my office and in my apartment is birds of prey. I mean, I just find them fascinating. It's not really that I think they're any more important than any other part of the puzzle, but they just speak to me in a way that's a little hard to explain.
Welcome to Cascade Raptor Center, located about 15 minutes from downtown Eugene and the University of Oregon. The center, built in 1985, strives to teach the role of wildlife in preserving the natural and cultural heritage of the Pacific Northwest. Rehabilitation and release of sick and injured raptors is a large part of the Cascades mission. Today at the center's clinic, surgery on a red-tailed hawk's injured crop. A raptor's crop is a pouch-like structure next to the esophagus, temporarily storing and softening food before it moves into the stomach.
He was hit by a car. Sometimes when raptors have a full crop and then they suffer the impact from a vehicle, that crop, which is full of food, just splits open or bursts open.
We'll be anesthetizing and then cleaning it up and suturing it up and getting him back, hopefully, on the road. I love coming up here and working with these guys once a week. Is such a nice vacation. We're purely just in this for the welfare of the birds and their wild, and being able to get them re-released into the wild. And I mean, it's really enjoyable working with dogs and cats, but there's something really special working with birds of prey. One thing you don't want to do is spend a lot of time fixing something and then ignore the rest, and all of a sudden you have a fracture that you didn't realize until later on. How do you tell if a raptor's in pain? They're designed to hide any type of weakness, so it's really important for us to be very proactive with pain medication, with inflammation, with infection, both fungal and bacterial.
Our goal is always to return our hospital patients to the wild.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with more Airborne Travelers. Not all birds that come to the facility are able to be released into the wild. Some of the birds remain at the center where they receive top-notch care and serve as ambassadors for their species. CRC uses their permanently disabled residents to create a hands-on experience of wildlife. Both on-site visits to the Nature Center and off-site presentations and exhibits are available for schools and the public.
So we have nearly 60 birds here that are part of our permanent collection of animals that live here full-time. They're all non-releasable, and so I oversee their training and their handling. I also oversee the content of our education programs that we do here on site and off-site. So we use operant conditioning here for training. So we basically reinforce behaviors that we want to see. We ask the animal if they want to work with us. And if they do, then we reinforce that. He's very excited. So what makes a bird a raptor? Raptors are obligate carnivores. They have to eat other animals, and that's all they eat. But they're not the only avian predators. So what makes them unique? And it all comes down to how they hunt. If you look at those feet, That is the important part when you're talking about a raptor. So raptors are all avian hunters that hunt using their feet. Raptors' feet are incredibly powerful, and on the ends of their toes they have claws, and we call those claws talons. So that's what makes a raptor a raptor. And these guys are almost impossible to see in the wild. They're known as the gray ghost of the forest. They're very secretive. They live in large tracts of older forest usually. Even some of the most experienced birders that I know have never seen a goshawk in the wild.
Hi, girls. We have two sister white-tailed kites from California. They came to us in 2006 with brain damage due to heat stroke.
Like all the resident birds, these two sisters have become a beloved part of the Cascade family. The kiting they are demonstrating is a close-up glimpse of natural behavior rarely seen in captivity.
The way that they hunt is they'll go out over open fields and they'll hover in the sky. Harriers do it, osprey do it, parallel to the ground, whereas the white-tailed kite will hover kind of upward and they'll move their wings back and forth like this. So our education director, Kit Lacey, this year went to a national conference that has to do with avian training and entered their kiting behavior into the behavior of the year. And their behavior won Best Natural Behavior of the Year, and we went out against Disney World and San Francisco Zoo. So we were very impressed with these guys. Dropped a piece.
The struggle to preserve the natural world within our world goes on. Here at the Cascade Raptor Center, the staff work tirelessly to educate the public and help the injured raptors. But the degree to which they are successful lies on our shoulders. So the hope is that even a brief encounter with these magnificent birds will turn us into the stewards of the wild world that we are truly a part of. Thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again when the open road calls. Before we go, I'd like to leave you with a look at the Evergreen Aviation and Space Museum in McMinnville, Oregon. And remember, discovery consists not in seeking new lands, but in seeing with new eyes. See you soon.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension. No man can fully grasp how far and how fast we have come. But condense, if you will, the 50,000 years of man's recorded history in a time span of but a half a century. Stated in these terms, we know very little about the first 40 years, except at the end of them, advanced man had learned to use the skins of animals to cover them. Then about 10 years ago, under this standard, man emerged from his caves to construct other kinds of shelter. Only 5 years ago, man learned to write and use a cart with wheels. Christianity began less than 2 years ago. The printing press came this year. And then less than 2 months ago, during this whole 50-year span of human history, the steam engine provided a new source of power. Newton explored the meaning of gravity. Last month, electric lights and telephones and automobiles and airplanes became available. Only last week, we developed penicillin and television and nuclear power. And now, if America's new spacecraft succeeds in reaching Venus, we will have literally reached the stars before midnight tonight.
Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
For more information about Go Northwest or any of the stories you've seen, go to www.gonw.tv or visit us on Facebook.